get started. And my name's Kirsten Robinson, and I'd like to invite you to our February Sustainability Forum. Can't hear? A little better? Is this better? Awesome. So I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Bob Anderson. Just going to go through his bio. Bob Anderson is a retired vice president of marketing for UOP LLC, the world's largest source of licensed technology to the global oil refining and petrochemicals industry. Prior to that, he was vice president of quality and productivity. During 37 years at UOP, he received 28 U.S. patents, earned a master's degree in management at Northwestern, and served as managing director of subsidiaries in Belgium, Italy, and the Netherlands. He is president of Robert F. Anderson and Associates, Inc. Bob joined his alma mater, Illinois Institute of Technology, in 2000 to start a technology transfer and intellectual property office. He worked with facility and students as an entrepreneurship mentor while serving as investor, officer, director, or consultant to startups in areas including thermal management of large lithium-ion batteries, solar energy, hybrid and plug-in hybrid conversion of vehicles from SUVs to school buses and city buses, and digital motor drives. He retired for a second time in 2014. Bob's taught classes since 2000 in Illinois Tech in environmental management, iPro creativity, project management, presentation skills, ethics, brainstorming, entrepreneurship, intellectual property, as well as globally distributed courses entitled Energy, Environment, and Economics, aimed at graduate students in disciplinaries from architecture to engineering, science, and business. As a senior faculty member at Keller Graduate School of Management, he taught a course in management of organizational change for 8 years. He's a regular speaker to groups interested in energy alternatives and has presented short courses in energy and the environment around the world. Please welcome Bob Anderson.
Thank you. I have a little louder voice than she does, so I hope everybody in the back can hear me. Nice to see such a big crowd excited to come and learn from me about sustainability. But as I walked around and introduced myself, I found out that most of you were walking across campus heading for the tower and were freezing. You came in to get warm, and you heard the two magic words that motivate all college students, which is free food. And then you noticed the guards at the door that wouldn't let you go out until you sat here and listened to what I had to say. So I'm going to try to entertain you for the next 4 or 5 hours, and I will do my best to keep it entertaining. Energy, environment, economics. This is not a gang sign. This is energy, environment, and economics. I'll show you a picture of a three-legged stool in a little while. Why did the caveman invent the second leg on a stool? Got to think back in your history. You ever sit on a two-legged stool, a one-legged stool? Where do you wind up? On your bazookas, right. The third E gives you stability. And my main message today is you cannot talk anything about sustainability unless you address all of the three E's. There's actually a couple of other things like education and communication and politics and so forth, but that is the essential start. So here's the things I want you to remember. I will do my best to transmit each one of you. When you do your business, whether you're a student, whether you're a professional engineer or a scientist, whatever, I want you to always approach your situation, your company, your job, thinking about all three E's. I want you to understand the potential for exponential growth. I'll talk about that a little bit more specifically, give you a math quiz. Peggy Murphy agreed to grade them and put them on your transcript on the way out. I'll teach you something called the Rule of 72, which, anybody ever heard of that one? Fantastic. The most important tool any engineer could know, and nobody ever knows it. You'll learn to invest time in problem statements. I see a couple of my former iPro students here. I beat on you guys for, 8 weeks till you got a problem statement that I would accept? Engineers love to dive into solutions, and I will try to beat that out of you today. Next, think about it. I taught change management for 8 years. Nobody wants to change. If I said, you, go over and sit here, you, come over here, take her place, you, take your hat off, you, put your phone down, you, drink iced tea, you're all going, oh my God, I can't do that, I'm already in my chair, this is my chair. You ever go into a class and sit in somebody else's chair? You get thrown out. Where is your name on there? You got a reservation for that thing? Nobody wants to change. There's one person who likes change. That's a wet baby. Everybody else says, no, I'm not want to change. And I'll try to prove to you that leadership is essential. If we're going to make change happen, if we're going to become more sustainable, we need leadership, and I'll define what that means. I am not your traditional academic, whatever that means. I don't have a PhD. I have a master's degree in business. I have 56 years of experience in the cold, cruel world, and I happen to love to teach. I taught all through my career at UOP. I had terrific people work for me. I made them even terrificer, if that's a word, and I enjoy doing the same thing back here at IIT. Every once in a while, we'll see a speech on TV or an article in a newspaper, maybe something about climate change, global warming, sustainability, and most people don't really understand what that's about. For example, as I was walking into the building today, I said, I'd like to have some of that global warming right now. It's 19 degrees out here, and I'm freezing. That's the level of understanding of the average person walking around the street. So, the stool analogy, a new energy source that has new pollution problems is not a solution. We can't say, okay, you get plenty of energy, but we're going to kill off your grandparents with coal dust. An environmental cleanup technology that consumes a tremendous amount of energy is not a solution. A new clean energy source that triples the cost of electricity. Anybody out there prepared to pay 3 times as much money for your electric bill? Not me. I don't see any volunteers. So, I've already said work has to start with a problem statement. If you start out with a solution, you cut yourselves off from maybe 10 or 20 or 30 even better solutions. If you take one of my classes, I'll try to sell you a medicine that I have invented. It's got about 11 components in it: benzene, trichloride, tribromoethane, silicon, pneumono ultramicroscope, all that kind of stuff. And one of the students will always say, what's it for? And I said, I'm working on a disease, but I got the drug for it, and I'm going to get the disease, I'm going to give you the disease, and then you've already got the medicine. $10, please. IIT students are really cheap because nobody wants to buy my solution if they don't have a problem. So problem statements got to be short and sweet, understandable to everybody. I love students who speak in two-sentence tweets or 3-word sentences, and when you ask to write a problem statement, they come out with words that long that I got to go to the dictionary to figure out. Make it simple so everybody can understand it, and if it makes me cry, that's even better. The best problem statement I've ever had teaching E-Cubed was some students who were looking at water pollution in India. And they stood up in front of the class and said, we'd like a minute of silence. And everybody shut up and listened. At the end, they said, thank you. During this minute, a baby died in India from dysentery from drinking water that was full of coliform bacteria. And I cried and the students cried. That's a problem statement, okay? That motivates you to go get something. If I said, the E. coli content of the Ganges River on January 13th went from 13 parts per million to 26, you don't care. But when I tell you there's a dead baby laying on the ground, you start paying attention. You need to talk about stakeholders. Who's affected by this problem? So what? Who cares? How big a deal is it? If it's going to cut your length of life by a couple of years, I think I know who cares. If it's going to make your kid get emphysema or diabetes or whatever it happens to be, cancer, I think you care. You need to identify that. You also need to know who is going to try to block you. I already said nobody likes change. All right? You try to propose that Americans pay $1 more a gallon for gasoline to encourage less gasoline consumption and more public transportation, you get run out of town on a rail. You cannot run for office on that campaign. All right? So in my classes, and some of you guys know that already, if you start with a solution, why don't you tell us what we would do, my friend? You start with a solution, what am I going to do? Throw you away. With the solution in your hand, I'll throw you out the window, which is why I teach APRO on the 7th floor. Let's see. Students who jump on solutions too early without doing those kinds of things. You see the ticking bomb down there? That bomb will go off. That's got a long fuse on it. I have a much shorter fuse than that, but I couldn't find a shorter fuse bomb. Writing problem statements sounds easy. As the introduction said, I've been involved with startup companies, half a dozen of them for the last 15 years. It's taken on average 8 years for the companies to get their problem statements right. So don't think you can throw something together in 20 minutes and come to my class and get patted on the head, what a good little student you are. Ain't going to happen. I'm going to tear it apart, I'm going to rip it up, you're going to try it again, I'm going to tear it up again, and pretty soon you're going to start coming up with something that makes some sense. No shallow thoughts, okay? No saying, I can solve world hunger real easy. All I need is some pumpkin seeds. No, you're not going to solve world hunger with pumpkin seeds. You need to think about it. Look for credible sources, okay? Some guy's got a blog and he's ranting and raving about immigration and a whole bunch of other subjects. All of a sudden says, in his judgment, climate change is a hoax. Don't fall for that kind of nonsense. We take our iPro class to the library and talk to Nicole Novak, and she teaches people how to find credible, believable information. Think about root causes of problems. The Japanese have a system that said, I was late to work today. Why? My alarm clock didn't go off. Why? I forgot to wind it. Why? I had a couple of beers before I went to bed and I was not thinking about winding my alarm clock. Why? Eventually you get down to what the root cause is. And maybe is, I shouldn't be so thirsty when I get home from work. But keep digging until you really you walk into the doctor's office and say, oh, you look like you need aspirin. You need some penicillin. You need to have some of this. Here's a new drug you ought to try. I haven't even met you yet. I haven't shaken hands with you. I haven't looked you in the eye to see if you're jaundiced or if your skin is cold and clammy or whatever. You don't make snap solutions. And here's the really dirty trick. When you finish with all this work, look at your solution, eventual recommendations, go back to the problem, and did you solve it? I once had a class, I was trying to build some teamwork, and I gave them some paper and, I don't know, Scotch tape and staples, and I said, build a bridge. And I got 5 sort of mediocre bridges, and one of the best-looking skyscrapers I have ever seen. I couldn't believe the students were that talented. What grade do you suppose I gave those guys for that beautiful skyscraper? What do you think? F, exactly. They said, but it's beautiful. And I said, yes, and the job was to build a bridge. And when your boss gives you a job that says, go over there and fix that leaky pipe, and you come back and you say, well, did you accomplish anything? Yeah, I went over and talked to the electrician, we fixed that blown fuse. Well, nice going. Good luck on your next job. Here's a cardboard box for you. You can take all your belongings out, and don't let the door hit you in the backside on the way out. That's how things work. Here's my problem statement on sustainability, and it's a little wordy, but maybe it will touch you. The world is standing by as climate change creates weather disasters, think Houston, think Miami, destroying farmland with rising ocean levels, try to raise crops on a farm that's been in seawater for a couple of months, drying up water supplies while we're killing human beings with particulate emissions. 1 million people a year, senior citizens in China, dying from the particulates coming from coal-fired power stations. Now, the Chinese government says, oh, but wait a minute, we're building 12 gigawatts of clean energy every year. We're taking care of the problem. What's your growth rate in China? 20. So you're growing 20 and you're building 12 clean. Where does the other 8 come from? Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Coal. Okay? So you got to look underneath the numbers and see what's really going on. Last night I happened to look at a newspaper before I taught my E-Cube class. Anybody know what day 0 means in Cape Town, South Africa? Anybody heard that story? In April, they are shutting off the water supply. So you got 2 months, you have an apartment, you run a school, you have a hospital, and you have until April. I don't know what you're going to do, buy a bunch of Coca-Cola or something, but the water will be cut off to the entire city. And the mayor of the town says, I think I know the answer, it's desalination. Well, at costs of tens or hundreds of billions of dollars, and you ain't going to build a desalination plant in 2 months. 2 years maybe if you rush it, but 3 years is probably more realistic. Terrible, terrible. Does that make you cry? It ought to. Untreated sewage in your drinking water? How many people in the world find that that's the only thing they can drink, cook in, bathe in, brush their teeth, and hope that the things floating by are reasonably innocuous? Does not get me all fired up. Traffic jams, where we waste time. You guys could be doing something useful, but you're sitting there blowing your horn and running into the bumper of the guy in front of you, trying to change lanes and pop back, and you wind up getting there at the same time everybody else does. Road rage, maybe you start shooting at people. That's kind of the new sport in Chicago. You're generating all kinds of greenhouse gases. You're chewing up all kinds of fossil fuels. Anybody understand exponents and exponential growth? compound growth, compound interest. Anybody have a savings account or stock account or bonds or anything like that? Well, we'll give you a couple of examples out of that. It's too bad that only 2 or 3 of you shook your heads when I asked that question, because if you don't understand it, you are really doomed. And I'll give you a couple of examples of what I mean. Well, suppose we figured out the problem we want to solve, we understand the root causes, we've brainstormed all kinds of solutions, we finally decided, okay, this is what we're going to do, here's how we're going to resource it, this is our ultimate goal, here's our plan, boom, 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 boom. Well, there's a nice equation, D times V times F greater than R equals C. Now, if you could figure out what those letters stood for, you would know how to manage change. And you know I'm a nice guy, so I'm going to tell you what it means. D stands for dissatisfaction with the status quo. If you're happy with the way things are going and I tell you to change, what are you going to tell me? Not interested, pal. Everything is fine. African American people in this country for a couple hundred years sort of learned from their grandparents, well, that's the way it is. Too bad we weren't born white, but we're second-class citizens. And in the 1950s, 60s, 70s civil rights movement, a series of famous leaders such as Martin Luther King said, we've had enough. We're not taking it anymore. And strides have been made. We're not there yet, but that dissatisfaction drove it. If everybody said, no, I'm okay, my parents, my grandparents handled it, I guess I'll put up with it, then forget the civil rights movement. Who's going to go to jail? Who's going to get beaten over the head? Who's going to get attacked by a German Shepherd if you really don't care that much and I can kind of live with what's going on? Don't rush this step. Nobody is going to walk the path with you if you haven't confirmed their dissatisfaction. And in their language, not parroting back what you said about dissatisfaction, in their language. Oops. What is going on here? Somebody ate one of the slides. Well, then I'll go back and do it because I already know what they all stand for. Okay. V, a vision of something better. If you decided you've had it with the status quo and you say, okay, what's in the future? If I can't light your fuse by something that really excites you, something you really want to commit to, you're not going to do it. In the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King said this as well as anybody has ever said it. I dream of a world where my kids will be judged by their character, what's in their hearts, not the color of their skin. Is there anybody who can't understand that sentence? You don't need to be a high school graduate to understand that. Anybody can figure that one out. So we have dissatisfaction, we have a vision. Next is first steps. First steps isn't, why don't you do something about this next week? Maybe I'll join you in a couple of months and do something about it. First steps is this afternoon, stick around here, let's decide what we're going to do, and here's your piece, and here's your piece, and here's your piece. Come back next week and tell me how you're doing. If you go through, again, use the analogy of the civil rights movement, they had sit-ins, they had newspaper articles. Thank God for TV. When they went across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Alabama and the firemen and policemen were waiting with German Shepherds and fire hoses and knocking these people down, beating them on the head, they couldn't have thanked those local thugs any more sincerely because they did it in front of the NBC cameras. And the entire country saw and said, these are people who want to vote, they want their kids to go to school, they want to have a job opportunity, they want to have an opportunity to go to a decent place, and the government puts dogs on them and fire hoses and beats them on the head. This is ridiculous. And significant change happens as a result of that. That was planned. That didn't just happen. You're going to volunteers to ride in the bus from the South knowing you're going to go to jail. People got to be committed. R. Anybody guess what R is? Any electrical engineers here? Any chemical engineers who paid attention in physics? Resistance, okay? I already said nobody wants to change. Oh, the politicians are going to say that's not consistent with my policy's platform. It's going to cost too much. People in my state are not going to benefit. I don't give a damn about those people in Texas or Florida or wherever it happens to be. Or, gee, we tried it once and it didn't work. Or I don't think the union would agree to go along with this. There's a whole book full of excuses, okay? It's about 400 pages long. You've got to either go over or under or around or through that resistance. Think about a football game. You got a lean, mean offensive line, a lean, mean or maybe not so lean, huge defensive line, and you're going to pound on each other and try to move that team in the other direction. Either knock the offense into the, into the stands or push your own team into a touchdown. And there's all sorts of ways of making that happen. But if you don't have a focused campaign on eliminating resistance, they will win. You can't say, but what I'm doing is right, I think I'm great, I have good motives. Forget it. Forget it. So there is something which, if you have it, change will happen. If you don't have it, it will not. And that something is leadership. Leadership at the top of the organization. When you hear the president of your company saying, this is so important, I'm going to appoint her, my right-hand assistant, to take care of this initiative, fold your tent and go home. Ain't nothing going to happen. Think about what happens in industry today. The president stands up in front of you guys, my workers, and says, I'm sorry, we're cutting out the vacation plan. We've dropped the pension plan. You're all going to take a 10% pay cut. And I'd like to sit here and explain it to you, but I've got to go pick out a new Learjet and a new company limousine, and they got one of those super stretch Teslas that I'm looking at, and then I'm going to go down and play golf in Florida someplace. Does that cause you to align with that company and want to follow that leader? I kind of doubt that. So, personal commitment to sharing the change, taking the pain, being very visible and very approachable. I worked for a time when our company was owned by Allied Signal, and the chairman of Allied Signal was known as the meanest CEO in the country. If they had one for the whole world, he would have been Mr. Universe of the meanest CEOs. And he lived every day, what can I do to make this company better, faster, take care of our customers better, empower our employees better, and he made the changes himself. And he said it was hard. One of his early statements was, there is no opportunity to do business on the internet. The only purpose of the internet is to share nasty pictures. And a little while later, when people started showing, well, gee, we forgot what you said, so we just got $4 million worth of revenue last month off of the internet sales. He said, oh, my goodness, I'll come down there and you show me. We'll make it happen. He once famously went, anybody here ever work shift work? Midnight shift, afternoon shift? Really exciting, right? I spent a whole year working rotating shifts. He went to a plant in Indiana that they had that they owned, and stopped in the coffee shop near the end of the midnight shift. He brought a big box of donuts, which is the secret of working with hourly workers around the world, and some coffee. And he started talking to them about his commitment to making change and to make quality products and make our customers happier. So he said, how did you enjoy your quality training? And the guy sitting across, what are you talking about? You know, our short course in understanding customers. Never heard of it. He said, enjoy your donuts, I'll be back in a few minutes. Went out of the room, came back 10 minutes later, and says, your new plant manager will be explaining this to you. Your old plant manager's up there with I actually took the cardboard box in for him so he could take his picture of his wife and his kids and all of his awards and out. Now, did those guys, think about that, a midnight shift plant operator, maybe a maintenance mechanic, does he understand that move? Does he understand that chairman is serious? You better believe it. Is that person willing to celebrate success? I had a situation where one of my machinists, we had a demonstration plant down in Florida, and whenever that thing needed attention, we'd call Mick, and he would jump on an airplane, go down there and fix it, and come back. And we get letters and phone calls from the management of this power station in Florida. What a great guy he is, what a great job he did. And we had the opportunity to make some kind of a recognition of his efforts. And the president, I put him in for it, and the president says, I'll come down next week. Call him in. So I'm sitting there shooting the breeze with the president. He says, okay, bring Mickey in. So call the shop. I said, send Mickey over. He walks in, he sees the president, and he swallows his tobacco chew. And the president says, hi, I'm Jack Pittis, have a seat. He says, oh my God, I've been fired before, but never by the president. And Jack says, I understand you've been going to Florida quite a bit lately. And you go on a moment's notice and disrupt your family affairs, and then we get letters from the customer down there saying, what a great guy you are. I'm here to say thank you. This guy says, I worked for Corn Products for 25 years before I came here. I never even met the plant manager, let alone the president of the company. And Jack says, oh, I almost forgot. Here's an envelope for you. He opens it up, and it's a check for $1,500. Now, in polite company, I can't tell you what his response to that was, but if you know any maintenance mechanics, you can guess. And the president almost fell off the chair laughing. He was so hard. He said, "Well, that's the best $1,500 we ever spent in this company." So let's say that we've decided that we've got our process elements together and we're going to start thinking about the future of the world. How many of you plan to live in the future? How many of you may have families that will live into the future? Okay. Some of you are just going to graduate from IIT and then go hide in a cave someplace. That's your business. Well, we need to quantify energy and environmental phenomena, problems, if we're going to solve them, right? I mean, if I tell you, we got a little fire up here, one piece of paper burning on here, you don't need to call the Chicago Fire Department. You go get a glass of water and you pour on it. If the whole building's on fire, you better not stand around throwing buckets of water at it, okay? So let's understand the nature of the problem. Anybody here linearly extrapolate? In other words, you got a couple of data points and you say, I wonder what's going to happen next year. I'll go like here, like here, like here. You do that? Okay, interesting. I had a guy who worked for me that worked in the gas industry. For 100 years, natural gas went from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 2. Oops. He missed that next year. Because what do you suppose he estimated? 13. He didn't think that maybe fracking was going to come along and totally change the economics of the natural gas business. So the real world has compound growth. Any biology majors here? You know about bugs growing? Growing faster, getting tougher, more resistant? Well, if you don't think about this thing in terms of the real growth phenomena that are going on, your long-term projections are going to be useless. Useless. Simple example. I retired in 1999, end of 1999. I'm one of the rare people that had a pension. You guys want to know what that is? Look up in the history book. They don't exist anymore. It was a pretty nice pension. I could live pretty nice on it. We've only had 3% inflation for those last 19 years or so. And the value of my pension is now about 40% in purchase power what it was when I retired. So if I was going to live the life of Riley on X, now I got to live the life of impoverished graduate students on 4/10 X. So we need to be able to think about those kind of projections. Well, to get some handle on this, I talked to one of my classmates. He was actually the valedictorian of our class. I was very close second, but Al was a year ahead of me. And I said, Al, what is the most powerful force in the universe? Now, it's a no-brainer, right? Nuclear fission, nuclear fusion, atomic bombs, hydrogen bombs. I mean, this is an easy one. Well, guess who doesn't have a brain? Not even a linear brain. That's me, because his answer was compound interest. You believe that? Maybe the part about him being in my high school might have been a stretcher, but he did, in fact, say that compound interest was it. So if we look at this graph, and I think you can see a solid line up here for the first couple of inches, right? And we said, it's been growing at that slope. I just get a straight edge out and run it further. Is that the dean of students? Who is that up there? Who is that? Whatever. Oh, the devil. I forget. A yardstick is the instrument of the devil. Hey, things are going to keep on growing the way they've been growing. Then when you look at what really happens, compound growth, that means each year it's a couple of percent higher than last year. Now that base is a little higher. The next one's a couple of percent higher than that one. And the curve starts going that way. So you save for retirement and I'm going to have $100,000 a year, and you wind up with 50. Ooh. But our brains were designed to think linearly. Your brains do not naturally think about exponential. So what kind of things compound? How about population growth? We have 7 billion of us in the world today, 10 billion coming by about 2050. That's about 3% annual growth. You can argue all over the place. It's 2.5, 3.5, it doesn't make any difference. I'll show you what the impact is going to be on population. Energy consumption. Why does energy consumption go up? Aren't we using Energy Star appliances? Well, to a woman in Nigeria who used to walk 4 miles to fill up a jug of water to come home to take care of her family's needs, who now has an electric water pump so she doesn't need to make that walk every day carrying 50 pounds of water. Wow. And then she says, gee, if I can get electricity for that pump, I can get some electric lights so my kids can study at night. I might even be able to get a refrigerator, keep my food from spoiling. And my husband's factory can now work 7 days a week. instead of Monday, Thursday, and some Saturdays when we used to get electricity for a couple of hours. And you add that across to millions of people who are living substantially lower economic level than we are, and it's growing at about 3% a year. Water consumption, well, the Cape Town people are going to take care of that one. They're going to go to zero. So the whole world, instead of growing at 3%, might grow at 2.99. Pollution of natural resources, river water, soil, hormones in your water. Read about that one. Read about that one. I haven't met any student yet who would like to be taking somebody else's birth control pills or somebody's antibiotics and become antibiotic resistant, all because they drank a cup of water from the city of Chicago. But that's what's happening, gang. How about epidemics such as Ebola and measles? And in some countries, polio comes back, okay? Smallpox can come back. How many people don't vaccinate their kids anymore because they think it's a plot by the communists to take over our country, whatever reason they have. Well, in our crowded world of energy consumers, even the dog likes to have a fan, right? It's 120 degrees out. He's going to get in front of that fan and get a little bit of cooling taking place. People who used to walk 10 miles or ride a mule 10 miles to go shopping at the market, now they go up on their little motorcycle, motorbike, and they'd make that trip in 5 minutes and come back, and they got the rest of the day to do something else. Put that all together, and by the time you guys retire, and if you think that's going to be when you're 65, come and talk to me afterwards, because that ain't going to happen. You might have guessed I'm a little older than 65. The world will be consuming 15 times as much energy as today. Now, if I said to one of you, with a little bit of practice and exercise, could you run 10% faster than you can run today? Could you lift a couple pounds heavier at the gym than you do today? Okay, good. Now, go lift 15 times as much. So if you can lift a 50-pound dumbbell, now try the 750-pound dumbbell, left hand. In fact, I'm a nice guy. Use both hands. Okay? It's the same problem. I've been in the energy business for 56 years. I could tell you how to get 50% more. I have absolutely no clue how to get 15. And if 15 doesn't scare you, I got another way of calculating it that comes out 16, and it doesn't make any difference. There's no way to get from here to there. So what does that mean to today's college students? Well, all through my career, I was pretty frugal, saved my money, and I said, I think I would like to have a Lexus someday, and I'd like to have a hybrid Lexus so I can be kind of a good citizen. And you may have those same ambitions, and by 2065, when you're ready to retire, you'll also have a hybrid. It's a camel and a bicycle. Which do you suppose you ride to go across the desert sands? Anybody ride a bike in sand? Doesn't work too good. Anybody take a camel down a crowded street into the markets of some little city someplace? No. So you ride across the desert on the camel, and you get on the bicycle, you go run around, go to the dentist, the doctor, the grocery store, drugstore, and you get back and go back home. Where do you leave the camel while you're doing the shopping on your bike? The camel lot, right? Well, your grandchildren probably are not going to have the wealth to purchase one of these 2065 hybrids. You're going to do like what I did, which is you start out with a Volkswagen. I had a 1962 Volkswagen Bug when we got married. Brand new, nice little car, go 61 miles an hour downhill with the wind blowing, the radio turned off. Well, next generation is going to have their Volkswagen as well. That's the 2065 Volkswagen. Think about that, guys. There ain't going to be any gasoline left. You can't afford a Tesla. You could say, well, I'm going to live on the top of a hill. That way I can just coast all the way down to work. Great idea, right? Now, how are you going to coast all the way back up that mountain again? Oh, well, I take care of half the problem. You guys take care of the other half. Get a little bit of a sense of compound growth. Is there anybody here from the administration? Are they going to see this thing? Well, you can actually buy an A in my class. Pretty easy. Anybody here play chess or checkers? How many squares on a chessboard? 8 in one direction, 8 in the other. Get out your spreadsheet, write A times B, put in the numbers, and what do you get? 64. Very good. So to get an A in my class, you put a penny on the first square, 2 pennies on the next one, then 4 pennies, and 8 pennies. Anybody want to know what the final payoff will be? What do you guess? 100,000, million, 2 million? What would you think? Billion? 10 billion? 36 billion? 100 quadrillion, which is 10 to the 17th dollars. Okay? And if IIT fires me for bribery, I will take some of that 10 to the 17th dollars. I'll buy this entire campus. I'll get rid of all the people that got rid of me, and we'll do whatever we want to do. We'll do a golf course here, swimming pool, whatever you guys want, or a nice new university building. Okay? That's what compounding does. Okay? Anybody know what a loan shark is? You're coming home from work and your wife says, stop off and get some milk, and you go in the store and it's $5. Oh, I got a couple of nickels and quarters in here. So you go outside and there's a guy standing there in kind of a shiny suit and a big wad of bills, and you say, can I borrow $5 till next? Oh, no problem, pal. Here's the 5, come back next week, give me 6. Do I have to sign something? No, I recognize you. So you come back next week, you still haven't got 6. You say, can you lend me 6? No sweat. Now you owe me 7. By the time you get to the end of the year, just doing that once a week, you're going to owe something like $77,000 on top of that $5. Okay? Does your brain tell you that that's the approximate answer that you're going to get? If you say it is, I'm going to call you a liar. Nobody's intuition would predict that kind of thing. Rule of 72, really powerful tool. If you want to know how fast it takes for something to double, divide 72 by the percentage growth rate. So if something is growing at 12% a year, 72 divided by 12 is 6. In 6 years, that thing will double. If you wait another 6 years, it'll double again. And you can quickly go 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and you kind of get the sense. It's not perfect, but if we say that air pollution is going to be 253 times worse than it is today, and then somebody does the calculation, oh, you're wrong, it's 256 or 241, you're all dead. Doesn't matter whether it's 240, 250, 260, even 195 will probably kill you, okay? But it gives you a quick idea of how fast things increase. So how do we deal with environmental and energy issues given these problems? Well, number one, we need to have a longer time frame for our decisions. What is the time frame of the U.S. Congress when they make decisions about our energy policy, environmental stuff, and so forth? Let's say I'm running for re-election in 2020. What is my time frame? Year and a half, right? And you say, but I got a problem in my community that's going to get really nasty in 10 years. And I'm going to say, you've really touched my heart here. I feel so bad for you, but I'm not going to do anything because I want to get reelected. Now, am I cynical about the way politicians work? I sure am. It's based on observation for a long period of time. They care about getting reelected. Why do we have corn ethanol in our gasoline? Is it because of environmental improvements? Come see me. I'll show you what the curve is of what it's actually a shotgun pattern. You could say it makes it worse, makes it better, doesn't do anything. So why do we have corn ethanol? Let's see. I'm a congressman from Iowa. What do most farmers in Iowa grow? Corn. If I can find a way that the government will force the oil companies to buy a whole bunch of corn, will I be a richer farmer? I will. Do you show your gratitude? Yes. Sending me some donations for my campaign and voting for me. Okay? That's how it happens. I'm sorry. That's the way it works. Oh, the Mexicans now pay twice as much for the corn that goes into their tortillas? Well, I'm not Mexican, so I don't care. That's how Congress thinks. Okay? I hope you guys have grown up with a little better moral compass and a sense of ethics than that. But, you know, if all I care about is how many Mexican people are going to vote in the Iowa election next year? 3? I think I can get along without them. Okay? They're probably, you know, murderers and rapists and whatever anyway. But some of them are nice people. I've heard that said. Take a look at historic data on growth rates. Dig in a little bit. How fast has it been? You know, in the earliest stages, you can't even measure it. So next year it's twice as big, you still can't measure it. Then it's 4 times, 8 times. Finally at 16 or 32, you can start to measure it. And if you looked at that, you would see the curve is already swooping up. You just don't have a strong enough magnifying glass. Oh, anybody know who this guy is? Sherlock Holmes, okay? Got his magnifying glass out looking to see if he can solve the puzzle. Burrow down deep enough and find if this is a linear growth or an exponential growth. I can give you 132 examples of exponential growth. If you really push me hard, I might come up with one example of linear growth, but probably not. So, you say it looks like there's maybe 6% or 4% or 3% underlying growth rate. Let's do a sensitivity analysis. Everybody knows how to do a spreadsheet, right? So put in your number of years and put in 3% and then try 6% and then try 9% and see, does it make much difference? And you're going to say, wow, it makes the difference as in 1 to 10 to 100. I better be really careful and make sure I understand what that is. I'm not going to say, oh, well, I'll just assume 3% and everything will be fine. What if it's 9? Not smart. So at least understand it. Next thing, used to be a weatherman in Chicago named P.J. Hoff. And he had an assistant he called the vice president of looking out the window. And the Weather Bureau would say to him, it's raining, cats and dogs out. And he would send the VP to look out the window and come back and says, it ain't raining, PJ, it's snowing. Or it's a sunny day. And so he would say, well, the Weather Bureau says this, but the VP is looking out the window says it's that. Monitor reality. If you said, I've got a savings goal and I expect to have $10,000 put aside by the time I've reached my fifth wedding anniversary, take a look. If it's 4 years and 11 months and you got $99, that's a little shy of the 10 grand, okay? So you're going to have to really hit it for that last couple of weeks. But maybe you even want to start monitoring a little bit earlier, okay? Now, an extension of this phenomenon is, when do you start working on a semester-long term paper? And I've been teaching for a lot of years, so don't lie to me, all right? Between 4 and 5 days before it's due. And then you race like crazy, and then the professor looks at it and says, I think you could improve this. Do you know how to light a match? And then you say, well, I got to have an A. I got to keep my visa. I got to keep my scholarship. I'll never get into grad school. Please give me an A. And what do I tell them? So our lives, our energy lives, our environmental lives, our country, our city, our state, all operate under the same rules. So what's at risk here? Well, number one, our way of life. You guys got it pretty easy. 72 degrees in here. We got lights on. We got a projector. I think that's pretty nice. You may have a vehicle that's got fuel in it that you can drive home or your apartment or whatever that happens to be. Economic well-being. If your electric bill cripples, if your gasoline bill goes to $12 a gallon, if your new automobile that you've saved up $20,000 for costs $83,000, you're going to be paying easy monthly payments until the 31st century, okay? Your health. Drinking that dirty water, breathing that dirty air. Think about those million elderly Chinese who are dying from breathing what comes out of those coal-fired power plants. And by the way, the Chinese are very hard workers, and they're very serious about this. They build a new power station burned on coal every week. 1 per week. So you can do the math. At the end of the year, there'll be 52 more of them. Yeah, there'll be 12 gigawatts of solar power, but what about those new coal stations every week? And you know what? There's some space in your backyard. Do you think your folks would mind if I put that power station back there? He already volunteered. He's in my IPRO class, and he said it's okay. We can put a nuclear power station or a coal station in his yard. He's not going to live that home. He's going to live on campus, so his parents got to take care of themselves. How about the political stability of the world? When we run out of water, when we run out of oil, when we run out of gas, and you have a family to feed and you want to have some electric lights, what are you going to do? Oh, would you please share your oil with me? You say, no, my associates here, Mr. Smith and Mr. Weston, suggest you might want to share your oil with me, and while you're at it, give me all your money. You say, oh, that's how animals behave. Have a teenager that hasn't eaten for 3 days? You guys can't go 3 hours without the pizza or two, okay? Am I going to steal your food, take your water to keep my family alive? Sorry, folks, yes, I am. And are you going to try to do the same thing in the opposite direction? Yes, you are. Do we have any responsibility so that people less fortunate, other countries, other continents, should have a lifestyle that's at least looking a little bit like ours? Or do I say, hey, let the Mexicans worry about that. People in Nigeria, they should have been born in the United States. That's their fault. I don't think so. There are moral and ethical issues here, guys. You know this guy? Abraham Lincoln, right? And Abraham Lincoln said, if we fail in this effort, everybody loses. Think different. Remember my takeaways? Make sure you address all 3 E's. Understand the power of exponential growth. Know how to use the rule of 72 to find out how fast you're going to get into deep trouble. Spend the time it takes to get really good problem statements and get other people invested in them. Acknowledge that nobody else is going to want to change. Nobody else is going to see things your ways. They're going to fight you tooth and nail. So D times V times F greater than R equals C. You guys ought to be able to figure that one out. And leadership is essential. Easy. All you got to do is those 5 things, 6 things, whatever it is, those 6 things. Only problem is nobody ever does it. So I thank you for your attention. We've got a couple of minutes. If you have some questions, comments, and I'll be happy to stick around for a while. This is date night in our house, so I got to get out of here by about 3:30, but otherwise my meter is paid, and so I'll be happy to stick around. But any public kinds of questions, I'll be happy to take. Who's brave enough to raise their hand and speak? Yes, Ms. Murphy. He'll get you a Lautenstreker, as we call it in Holland and Belgium.
But I'm old and a little cynical.
Let me show you my
too.
driver's license afterwards. I got carded last week. I said, well, you think I'm not old enough? The bartender says, no, you're too old. But go ahead.
But, and you know, it's wonderful here at IIT, and I work with Weiser, so we see you young people and the innovation and the solutions and the problem solving, and it's awesome, and they are equipped to handle these challenges. But when you talk about, and I'm just bringing this up personally, but you talk about China and the coal and the health situation, and if we had the best solution, if their government is still, you know, building a coal plant every week, how can we help that? How can we help them solve that when the policy doesn't allow for it?
It's a 2-step process. She wants to know, how can we make China change their evil ways of burning coal? Number 1, fix exactly the same problem in the United States. And after you do that, I'll be so impressed, I'll take you to China and we'll do it over there. But I hope you got another 50 years of life left, because that's how long it's going to take you to make it happen here. Clean coal, guys, remember that?
Well,
Remember clean coal? Did you hear that in the speech the other night?
no.
That's, you take a piece of coal and get a toothbrush and some lava soap, or that stuff you guys that are working outside that you do to get the grease off your hands, and then you rub that piece of coal with that toothbrush for a while, and then you burn it, and everybody's happy. Is that how that works? Not where I... Did you give up your microphone? No.
I had hope.
Not at all. Not at all. By intention. Somebody else? I mean, if climate change is a hoax and we want to get jobs for coal miners in Kentucky, are we going to worry about clean air when we've dismantled the EPA? Kind of doubt that. Anybody write your congressman to protest that kind of stuff? Don't remember seeing that. Okay. Anybody else? You tell me Peggy's the only one with enough courage to speak up? Okay. Well, I'll stick around for a while. Drop by. Thanks for your attention.